Today we're on Facebook Live. So good evening if you're joining us on Facebook. We're here at Bodhipala Monastery, South Australia, near Adelaide. The birds have just gone to bed, so we meditated through the birds' bedtime. I don't know if it came out on the microphones, but a lot of noise here. And just reminding each other that they're still here. And in the morning when they get up, they'll remind each other again with another morning chorus. It's the way the birds do it. We have our evening meditation, chanting, Dhamma teaching, and the birds have their chorus. And in the morning we also have meditation, chanting. It's part of our regular practice, whether you're at home or in the monastery. Regular meditation, chanting, listening to Dhamma helps you to keep bringing up the wholesome inputs, the wholesome thoughts and reflections that can guide your wisdom, understanding of the Dhamma, what we call samma ditthi, right view. We develop that through hearing the Dhamma and then reflecting on the Dhamma over and over again. Everybody wants to get enlightened quickly. They all want to be like the monks and nuns and lay practitioners in the time of the Buddha. Just meet the Buddha once, hear a talk, and then get enlightened. Why is that? Because we don't like to put forth much effort if we can avoid it. You might say we're a bit lazy. We would like to hear the Dhamma and understand it immediately. And indeed we often do understand on the intellectual level. We understand the concept maybe of good karma, bad karma. We understand the concept of impermanence. Even if we study and learn the Dhamma, we might understand what the Buddha was referring to when he talked about all phenomena being not self. Physical, mental phenomena are not self. We don't own anything. But that's understanding with the memory, with the intellect. It's not the same as understanding with the heart and knowing with the heart. So we also have to practice. And that's where we often lose heart, because practice requires regular effort, listening to Dhamma, meditating, keeping precepts. But there's no way around it, because we're training, developing our hearts and minds in a good way for the end of suffering. But one thing that helps is reflecting on the fact that we still suffer in life. We still have physical pain of a body that is fragile, sensitive. And we also have mental pain. We have the suffering that comes when we experience desire. Because desire implies the mind is not satisfied, not at peace, not easy. There's something we want, something more that we want to be happy. Or when we have negative desire like aversion, irritation, jealousy, anger. Also it's mental suffering. The mind is not peaceful. And the more subtle suffering just of delusion, confusion, not understanding things. So it's when we notice the suffering, that we look for a way out of suffering or a way to deal with it. So for many of us, that brings us to the monastery. We want to come to the monastery to hear the Dhamma, learn meditation, do good things as a way to improve our practice and develop our hearts and minds in a better way. Not just hearing the Dhamma, but actually putting it into practice. Ajahn Chah used to talk about how when we experience some dukkha, some suffering or pain, it's like the guy walking along the road and he gets a thorn in his foot. If you ever get a thorn in your foot, you'll notice quite often you can still carry on walking. It's just occasional pain. Every time there's pressure on the part of the foot that has the thorn and you feel the pain, maybe you lift the foot quickly, but then you can carry on walking. You put your weight down on the other foot which doesn't hurt, or the other part of the foot that doesn't hurt. So you may be able to walk a long time without removing the thorn in your foot. And life is a bit like that. Even though we notice dukkha and suffering, we kind of limp along through life, hoping that somehow we'll get through it, even though it keeps returning. And that's because the thorn is still there in the foot, or the mental thorn of different kinds of pain, mental pain and anguish, suffering are still there. We haven't taken them out yet, haven't taken the thorn out yet. But we kind of limp along hoping, assuming that we may get by. And then we have these gaps where there's no pain, no dukkha. So then you think, oh, well, I'll be all right, I'll get along okay now. But then it returns. And as long as you haven't taken the thorn out, or as long as you haven't removed the causes of pain and suffering from your mind, it will keep returning. And sometimes it returns worse than before, more often than before. Just like a thorn, you keep walking on that thorn, it will press it deeper into your body, and over time maybe the thorn will make your foot go septic, infected, so the pain may increase or spread. So sooner or later you have to sit down and take the time, stop your journey, take the time, pull the thorn out. And that takes some courage to grab the thorn. Maybe it hurts more than ever when you grab the thorn, and you need to be firm and pull it out. But once it's out, then of course you have the opportunity to heal, your foot can heal, and the pain will go away. So coming to the monastery is like taking the thorn out. You have to stop. You stop work, stop life, other aspects of your life. You come into the monastery. Quite often we're not ready to do that. We say we've got too many things on, too much work, too much happening, family. So it's like the person limping along with the thorn. We know we need to practice more, but we haven't done it yet. But when you come into the monastery, it's like, oh, you're really giving your mind a chance to stop, slow down. And then you can see more clearly where the problem is. Maybe it's simply you're attaching too much to your work, your family, to other people, attaching to material things, always looking to earn more money, get more things, get more wealth. Always attaching to people, this person I like, that person I don't like. When you come into the monastery, you have a chance to see your mind more closely. And then you can improve things, like taking the thorn out. So the Buddha said when we practice, we have to develop samma sankappa, right thought, right intention. The nekamma sankappa, the intention to let go of sensuality, all the kinds of pleasures of the senses that we get so caught up in and obsessed with. Again, seeking out material things, different sense pleasures. That seeking is very tiresome and creates all kinds of attachments and confusion for us. So nekamma sankappa is saying, oh, enough, I have enough. If you have enough to eat, your health is good enough, you have enough, a place to stay, a place to practice. So like a monastery, there's enough comfort in a monastery that you can shelter from the weather, you get enough food, maybe 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day in the morning. You have enough, so you can put aside the mind that's always seeking more. This is the practice of nekamma. You come into the monastery, you practice dana. So you make donations to build things like halls and accommodation, kitchen, Buddha statues, the chetties, all the things that people build in monasteries. That's the practice of nekamma. And rather than going out endlessly earning money and accumulating wealth, practice giving some of that wealth, sharing some of that, giving it away, sharing it with the wider community, supporting the Sangha. That's nekamma. Or you come into a monastery, you keep the 8 precepts maybe. Practice celibacy, not eating in the evening, give up entertainments and things. That's the 8 precepts. That's also nekamma. And it all supports the practice of meditation. When you meditate, you're also practicing nekamma because you're not pursuing a lot of different sense contact, sense impressions. When you meditate in the sitting posture, you close your eyes, put your attention on one object, such as the breath. So whatever stimulation comes to your senses, you're letting that go. Again, the practice of nekamma, renunciation, letting go, sights, sound, taste, smell, touch. You're saying, I don't need to own all of these, I don't need to hold on to these, I can let them go while I meditate. And we also practice avihingsa sankappa, non-ill will and non-cruelty, abhayabhada sankappa, ahingsaka sankappa, non-ill will and non-cruelty. We're keeping the precepts, being restrained in our actions, our speech, then we give up our anger, we don't harm others, other beings, even little insects. We keep precepts, live harmlessly. That also supports meditation, because if you're giving up the worst of your ill will, your anger, then your mind becomes very peaceful, quickly. Ill will, anger may arise, but if you're practicing right intention, samma sankappa, you give it up. You just say, oh, I'll let go of this, I'll forgive, I'll accept, I'll be patient with whatever is annoying me, let it go. Well, these 2 things, when you're in a monastery particularly, you have a chance to practice them very well. Give up attachment to the senses, give up attachment to ill will, anger, don't seek to harm others, don't seek revenge on others. Then your mind settles down very easily. Even when you're not meditating, if you're practicing samma sankappa, your mind can be very calm and at peace because you're cultivating the skillful thoughts, the right thoughts. And if you do practice meditation in a quiet place like a monastery, then your mind can gather together all this mental energy that's normally dispersed, going out to think about work and family and what you like and what you don't like in the world. You can let all that go. You can allow yourself to let it go and just develop the intention of letting go, forgiveness, kindness, all that energy that's normally flowing out through the senses to the world. Now it can turn inwards to just gather within one place in the mind as you focus on the breathing, for example. Practice mindfulness of breathing, all that mental energy comes in. You can let go of your senses, let go of thoughts about the past, thoughts about the future, and your mind gathers inwardly and becomes more and more peaceful the more mindfulness you practice with the breathing. Some people think you can't meditate until you're kind of perfect, you're living this perfect life where you have no problems, no thorns in your side or your foot. You have no problems, no issues, everything is good, your behavior is perfect, your life is perfect, then you'll meditate. But you'll know that will never happen, because nobody is perfect. When you're meditating, you realize you're kind of practicing a mix between the old and the new. The old is your old karma that you've made previously. When you meditate, you'll notice that. You have different thoughts and reactions arise in your mind, physical sensations, how your body is, how your mind is, your memories, your reactions and thoughts. That's all old karma coming up. But then the new karma is the meditation. You're now developing mindfulness and right thought, right intention, samma sankappa, samma sati. This is new good karma. So the old and the new meet, and you use the new good karma to help you manage the old and make use of the old. You can't expect to kind of blot out your past. Like some people want that, and they say, oh, have you got some blessing or some verse or some practice that will get rid of all my old karma for me, wipe the slate clean? You don't have to do that. You have to just understand old karma is old karma. You may have hurt someone in the past and you can remember, but it's now past, it's finished. The new karma is you're learning not to dwell on it or get stuck on it. You forgive, you let go, and you move on. It's like the clothes we wear. When you first buy clothing, of course, it's attractive because it's brand new, clean, unsoiled, unworn. But as soon as you wear any item of clothing once, it becomes worn, becomes old. But if it's reasonably well-made clothing, you can use that clothing for a long time, maybe even years or even many years. I'm still wearing robes that I made 20 years ago. If you look after a piece of clothing, you might use it for a long time, 10 years, 20 years. So your clothing is no longer perfect because you've worn it. But if you look after it and you wash it, clean it, it's still useful to you. Karma is like that. You have to make use of your old karma. You can't get rid of the past. So the things you did in the past that were not so good, the mistakes you made, the negative thoughts, the unkind things you said, the selfishness, the greed, whatever it was in the past, you can't just make that disappear. You may still remember things that you did. The important thing is when you practice mindfulness to be mindful enough to know, oh, that's just a memory. And then you change your intention in the present moment. So you say, I'll give up the intention to harm, I'll give up the greed, I'll give up the selfishness, I'll give up the jealousy, whatever it is that you've done in the past. In the present, you give it up. You make use of the old, you learn from it, you learn from what was good, and you can repeat that. You learn from what was bad, and you can give that up, change that. So it's just the same as putting on some clothing that's old. You've washed it, you've folded it, but you can still wear it, maybe for many years. You might call our body and mind are like old clothes. We've been with this body and this mind for many years now. And we've made karma, and not all of it was good. Some of it was good, some of it was not good. But you can make use of it all if you bring up the right qualities in the present moment. The right thought, the right mindfulness, the right effort, the right concentration, the right view and understanding. And you make use of what you have, your body, your mind, what you've got. When I say make use of, I mean you learn from your body and mind how to reduce suffering, how not to attach and cause suffering. So sometimes we attach to memories, don't we? We make a big deal out of memories of unpleasant experiences, painful, even traumatic experiences. They come up. If we're not very mindful and don't understand, well, we'll grasp hold of them and say, that's me, that's myself. And then we make fresh, new pain out of that. If you can establish mindfulness and train yourself, you say, okay, this unpleasant memory or painful feeling has arisen, but I'm going to let it go. I'm not going to hold on to it. I'll just acknowledge it and be mindful of it and let go. You can even learn something from it, because you can learn that painful feeling is impermanent. It rises, it ceases. What's impermanent is not a self. It doesn't just exist there all the time, because that's what a self is, something that just exists, is there. It doesn't. It arises due to different causes and conditions, and it passes away. It's not permanent. So you can make use of even a bad, unpleasant memory. You can make use of a painful feeling in your body. When you meditate, maybe you have aches and pains in your legs. You can be mindful of them and just know the painful feeling is just painful feeling. It arises, it ceases, it's not self. It's not there all the time, it's impermanent. It can be let go of, meaning you let go of the self that grasps at that painful feeling. So this is how we make use of the old. We're learning in the present moment, we turn it into something new, turn it into something useful, helpful to us. Through practicing the Dhamma, cultivating mindfulness, wise reflection. We learn from the old and we turn it into something good and new. And we remove the suffering from the experience. We pull the thorn out. If you ever walk barefoot through a forest full of tea tree in Australia, a tea tree is very prickly, thorny, so if you walk barefoot, you often get many of the tea tree thorns in your foot, so it might take a while to pull the thorn out. You pull one out, and then you have to pull another out and another. Different kinds of vegetation can be like that. It's not like you only get one thorn, you may get many thorns. The more you walk, you keep encountering thorns. Life is like that. You pull out one thorn and you think, oh, I've got rid of my dukkha, my suffering. But then another one comes along. It's like, oh, not again. But if you learn what you have to do, you realize the importance, and you learn the technique of how to pull a thorn out, and you learn this is what I need to do. Well, then you don't have to worry about any new thorns. You just say, oh, whatever thorn comes into my foot, I'll stop, pull it out, then I can carry on. Dealing with dukkha is like that. You can't expect to get rid of all dukkha from your life, all painful feelings, unpleasant experiences, people you don't like, things you don't like. You'll never completely exhaust all of them. But you can change your understanding by practicing this path. Mindfulness, wisdom. Then dukkha or suffering doesn't bother you because you just understand it for what it is. It's just thorns that need to be pulled out. You pull them out and then you carry on. Maybe you have to walk a long way, but you don't leave the thorns in. You just keep pulling them out. And as many thorns there are, or you just pull them out. Maybe eventually you reach a pathway where there's no thorns and you can go along quite easily. So we're lucky we have this pathway and way of practice the Buddha gave us. Call it the Noble Eightfold Path. It takes us through life if we cultivate it, and it helps us to uproot or pull out the suffering of life. That pulling out is going on in your mind through developing right understanding, right thought, right mindfulness, and so on. Human beings often get it wrong. We keep thinking that if we control the world well enough, we'll be able to get rid of all suffering. It's probably impossible, isn't it? As long as you've got a body, you'll experience some aches and pains, and aging, and ultimately we all have to face death. But if you develop understanding, then you can move through this world and live in this world without suffering. You may still have to face unpleasant situations on the outside, but on the inside you don't have to suffer. Because you know all these things are impermanent anyway, and no need to cling on to them or expect them to be any other way. So the Buddha was encouraging us to know suffering, know what the cause is, abandon the cause, let the cause go, and then experience the end of suffering. And you can repeat that over and over again through the practice. That's why if we keep meditating, keep practicing dana, generosity, kindness, keeping precepts, cultivating mindfulness, and then we can free our mind from suffering. It's possible. So maybe I'll leave you with those reflections tonight.
An panayang ovada katayo panamase sadhu sadhu